If you still think 6 words on a Tuesday night can't bring down a 48-hour news cycle, watch what happens when the wrong 6 words land in the wrong room at the wrong time. Nobody in the studio knew what was inside the envelope Kimmel set on the desk before the cameras started rolling. Not the producers in the booth, not the audience warming up in their seats, not Trump's advance team, who had reviewed the segment outline submitted that afternoon and found nothing in it they considered a threat. By the time the envelope opened, the complaint had already been filed, and by the time the complaint became public, the 6 words had already done the only thing that mattered. Tuesday, 10:47 p.m., Studio T1. Kimmel is mid-sentence when he stops. Not a pause for effect. A deliberate, chosen stop. The kind that tells an audience something is about to change direction. He reaches for the desk surface. His hand comes up with an index card. He reads 6 words from it without preamble, without introduction, without the buffer of setup that normally cushions a line before it lands. She wrote it. He approved it. The audience doesn't laugh. They go very still. To understand what those 6 words meant in that room at that moment, you have to go back 3 weeks. Monday, 9 days before the taping. New York, 11:22 a.m. Melania Trump's memoir. Not a documentary, not a campaign book, but a formal hardcover narrative memoir, filed with a major publisher under her name alone, has been announced for a spring release. The announcement is a single paragraph distributed through the official White House communications channel. No excerpt, no publishing house statement, no publicist quote. Just a title, a date, and a line confirming that the proceeds would support an unnamed charitable foundation. By noon, 3 publishing industry sources have told 2 separate trades that the manuscript was submitted under conditions they had not encountered before. A non-negotiation clause on editorial review, a writer prohibiting the publisher's editorial team from requesting changes to any section classified as personal narrative, and a sign-off requirement on the final page proof that named, by title, a member of the current administration's senior communications staff. The sign-off requirement was the detail that no one in the initial coverage addressed directly. It appeared in one trade item as a subordinate clause. It appeared in the second as a parenthetical. It did not appear in the official announcement. Tuesday, 6 days before the taping. The first review copies arrive at media desks under embargo. 11 journalists receive them. 7 of the 11 report, within 24 hours, that they have been asked to sign an unusually restrictive review agreement as a condition of access. The agreement prohibits quotation of more than 40 consecutive words from any single passage. It prohibits characterization of the book's political content in terms that could be described as editorializing. And it contains a clause, Clause 9, subsection B, that requires advance approval of any headline containing the First Lady's name alongside any member of the current administration other than the President. 4 of the 7 journalists sign the agreement, 3 decline and return the review copies. Wednesday, 5 days before the taping. Kimmel's writers receive a copy, not through the official review distribution, but through a contact. The copy is complete. It is read overnight by 2 senior writers. By Thursday morning, a single page has been flagged and set aside. The page is in Chapter 7. The passage on that page is 73 words long and contains a specific description of the approval process for the memoir's chapter on the administration's education policy. The description names a process. The process, as described, is not standard publishing practice. It is the process that requires a senior communications official to review and approve narrative characterizations of policy outcomes before the author is permitted to finalize the relevant chapter. The author, in this passage, refers to this process in the first person. She describes receiving the revision notes. She describes implementing them. She does not describe this as unusual. Friday, Kimmel's production team submits a segment outline to the network's standards department. The outline describes a monologue segment on celebrity memoirs with a brief reference to Melania's upcoming book. The outline is approved at 3:17 p.m. The outline does not mention the flagged passage. Tuesday, 10:44 p.m. The taping begins. Kimmel opens the segment lightly. A reference to the book announcement, a brief comparison to other First Lady memoirs, a joke about the charitable foundation whose name has still not been publicly confirmed. The audience laughs. The warm-up is standard. A production assistant standing in the left wing later described the segment's opening 3 minutes as feeling completely normal. She said she was checking her phone. Then Kimmel set down his cards and picked up the index card. He had been holding it under the desk throughout the opening segment, and the transition was seamless. One hand down, one hand up, the card appearing in frame without ceremony. He read the 6 words at his normal speaking pace, neither slower nor faster, in a voice that carried no additional weight. She wrote it, he approved it. He set the index card down. "That's from Chapter 7, he said. Page 183. Published in approximately 11 days. Already approved by the White House Communications Office. He reached below the desk. The envelope came up slowly, not dramatically, but with the measured deliberateness of a man who is very aware of where he is putting his hands and why. He set it flat on the desk surface. He did not open it yet. He looked at the camera in the way that communicates directly to an audience, that what comes next is not part of the planned entertainment. "I want to show you something," he said. Inside the envelope was a single page, a reproduction of Clause 9, subsection B from the review agreement. Kimmel read it aloud, not the whole clause, just the sentence that contained the requirement for advance approval of headlines. He read it twice. The second time, he paused after the phrase, "any member of the current administration," and let the pause hold for 4 seconds before completing the sentence. A man in the third row sat forward. A woman near the back of the studio pressed her palm flat against the seat in front of her. The monitor behind the desk activated. On screen, 2 columns. Left column, the standard publishing review process as described in the Associated Press Style Guide and 2 major publishing industry association guidelines. Right column, the process described in Chapter 7 of Melania's memoir as written by Melania in her own first-person voice. Kimmel let the screen speak for 30 seconds without adding narration. Then he said the words that had not appeared in the segment outline submitted to standards on Friday. "That's not a memoir," he said. "That's a managed document wearing a memoir's name. The geometry here isn't complicated. One column is how books get made, and the other column is how messages get controlled. And those 2 columns aren't the same column." He set down the page. "The geometry doesn't lie," he said, "even when the people responsible for it would prefer that it did." The room absorbed the second use of the word differently than it had absorbed the first. A production camera pushed in 2 stops. The audience had gone from the ambient restlessness of people watching entertainment to the particular stillness of people watching something they will remember. What happened next did not happen on camera. At 10:52 p.m., while the segment was still in progress, while the cameras were still rolling, while Kimmel was still at his desk, a formal complaint was filed with the network's Broadcast Standards Office. The complaint was time-stamped 10:52:14 p.m. It named the segment by its production code. It cited a violation of the review agreement under Clause 9. It named Kimmel by full name. It was filed not by Trump's personal legal team, not by a network liaison, not through the standard public affairs channel that handles broadcast complaints. It was filed by a member of the senior White House communications staff, directly, by name, in writing, while the segment was still airing. The network received the complaint at 10:52 p.m. The segment ended at 10:58 p.m. The complaint was logged, routed, and assigned to a senior standards officer within 4 minutes of receipt. The complaint was the story that ran the next morning, not the book, not the clause, not the 2 columns on the monitor. The complaint, its timestamp, its source, its specific timing relative to the broadcast, is what every political correspondent and media journalist spent Wednesday writing about. Because the complaint was filed before the segment ended, and a complaint filed before a segment ends is not a response to content. It is a preview of intent. Trump posted at 11:09 p.m., 17 minutes after the complaint was filed and 11 minutes after the segment concluded. The post used the word illegal 4 times. It used the phrase total invasion of privacy twice. It described the segment as a coordinated attack on the first family designed to interfere with the First Lady's right to publish without political obstruction. A characterization that several constitutional scholars noted, gently, was applied to conduct by a government official against a private broadcaster rather than the other way around. Each observation was posted alongside Trump's original statement. Each juxtaposition arrived without editorial comment and required none. The 6 words accumulated their own ecology overnight. By 6 a.m. Wednesday, the phrase, "she wrote it, he approved it," had been searched 2 million times. It had been printed on 3 pieces of merchandise by independent vendors on 2 platforms, both of which had taken the listings down within 6 hours, and both of which had documented the removal process publicly, which resulted in the removal documentation being shared more widely than the original listings. A political science professor at a large Midwestern university used the Clause 9 language in a classroom exercise on the difference between prior restraint and editorial oversight. The exercise was posted to a university forum. The forum forum post was shared 60,000 times in 14 hours. Kimmel did not post about the complaint. He did not respond to the network statement confirming that the complaint had been received and was under review. He appeared at his desk the following Wednesday evening and opened his monologue with a reference to a completely different story. He did not mention Melania. He did not mention the book. He did not mention Chapter 7 or Clause 9 or the geometry of managed documents. He talked for 11 minutes about something unrelated. The complaint was still under review. The book had not yet been published. The page 183 passage remained in the advance copy. No retraction had been issued. No revision had been confirmed. The sign-off requirement on the final page proof had not been publicly addressed by the publisher, the White House Communications Office, or the First Lady's spokesperson. Some things don't require a conclusion. They require only that you keep watching, and that you understand what you are watching, and that you remember that the geometry of how things get made is always visible if you know which column to look at. After everything you just saw, ask yourself one thing: what else has been hiding behind the noise? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story isn't over, it's just getting started.